So this morning, I was sitting upstairs preparing for my talk, and a gentleman came up and he walked up to me and he started talking to me. And he was just saying, because he sees me here all the time, so he knows I'm the minister of Agape. And so he came up to me and he was talking to me about how he was watching a television program this morning and how this person was talking about how life is about responsibility. And then he proceeded to tell me a story that he was a probation officer and that he dealt with were families where there was abuse going on, and most of the people he was dealing with were men who got physically violent with their partners. And he said as he explores this, talking with them, he would ask them questions. And he said, so what caused you to take the step toward physical violence? And he says, well, she did this and she did that, or she caused me to feel this, she caused me to feel that. And he would keep questioning. And the interesting thing is he would always try to bring it back to, did you have a choice in responding? But the individuals he was dealing with could not see that they had a choice. So what they were doing is they were reacting all the time. They were automatically reacting to the situation in front of them instead of realizing that within them they have a choice to react this way, that way, or even a new way. So the question I ask is, do you ever feel like your life is out of control? Are there times in your day when you are so there and you're so out of control, you wonder, how am I going to get myself back in tune? The question I ask is, can you? Is it even possible to get our lives back in control? Well, I'm going to tell you that in my mind, the answer is yes. The answer is yes simply by declaring right now that I always have a choice, that there's always a new opportunity. And so as I do that, it comes back to this idea. How do you have a choice? Why do I have a choice? How can I get back control of my life? And it comes back to the idea is there's a truth out there, and this truth will set you free. We hear that over and over and over again, that the truth will set us free. But what does that mean to us? Truth is something that cannot change. A truth is not a fact, because a fact is a consequence. The fact is that chair is right there. Is that not a fact? Is that the truth? The truth is something that never can be changed. So that is not the truth for that chair. The chair can be moved. The truth is something that is beyond a doubt. There's no way it can possibly be anything other than that. So what is the one truth that we claim each and every week here as we talk about spirituality, about emotionality, about intellectuality, about action things? We talk about this cosmos. We talk about how we react in it. Here's the only truth that we talk about day in and day out. God is infinite. Universal mind is infinite. Spirit is infinite. Anything you want to put a label on it, call it anything. Call it George. Call it Mary. Call it Lakeisha. I don't care. Put a name on it. But whatever you call this power, this presence, it is infinite. And from that idea, from that truth, everything comes to us. The power that we are, the power to take control of our lives, birth itself. And it's in that because in that truth, we now have the availability to follow two words with something completely different. And those two words that we use day in and day out, and most of the time we use them unconsciously as we think, are I am. Anytime anything is put after I am, that thought, that picture is being put into the universal infinite intelligence of the divine, and that becomes our experience. You see, we are creators. Why are we creators? Because when we say that God is infinite, that means that we are that infinite expression individualized. And as we are that individualized expression of God, the power that is the infinite, the power of the oneness, is fully present right here. It's present as me, it's present as you, it's present as everyone we meet. So when we look at this idea, and you hear this in all spiritual paths, they go, love God, love God, love God. And we say, well, how the hell do you love something infinite? Did you just hear the minister say, how the hell do we love something infinite? The thing that I loved, it's on recording and we can put that out there. But the thing that I want to say about that is, I love that I said that. Because when I said that and I loved it, it meant I was loving God, because if everything is God, the way we love God is we love everything. We look at it without judgment. We accept it as is. We accept it as an expression of the one. To be able to say that we truly love the infinite, that we buy into the infinite idea, means that we love God and we love life. If we don't love someone, we can't love God, because you are excluding an aspect of God when you say we don't love someone. Does that make sense? So the whole idea of this idea of freedom is the recognition of oneness with God, and in the oneness, we claim our power, we use our power. Ernest Holmes said this, God can do nothing for us but what it can do through us. So only way that we can experience the creative power of the one is through us. And how does it express through us? Through our thoughts, through what we say. Everything begins with a thought. Thoughts are things. Change your thinking, change your life. You've heard those adages over and over and over again, but I want to stress how important they are. So the other thing that Ernest Holmes says, nothing is more important than we understand our oneness with God. Nothing is more important, because without an understanding of our oneness with God, we don't know what our power is. So let's focus in on that. Understanding our oneness with God means understanding that God is infinite, that if God is infinite, we are infinite. Can we do that with our mind? Can we do that with our intellectual thought? No. It has to be something that is experienced. And the experiences, and all the great teachers, all the great avatars have talked about, we go into the silence, we go into the oneness, we go into meditation. The oldest form of meditation practice today that I am aware of is Kriya Yoga, and that started before Hinduism. The whole purpose in Kriya Yoga is going into oneness. In the Hindu philosophy, it's going into the oneness. In the Buddhist philosophy, it's going into the oneness. In the Christian philosophy, they don't talk about it often, but Jesus often went off for 40 days and 40 nights into the oneness. He went into the desert. He went into the stillness. He went to connect with the oneness of God, where he was able to realize the powerfulness that he was to come back and do what he did. So all the great avatars talk about this idea, to know God, we must go into the silence. And to know God, you cannot possibly put words to describe the experience of oneness. So we've tapped into it. We've tapped into that power as such. And now how do we use that power? We use that power through treatment. Treatment is another way that we define as affirmative prayer. And Ernest Holmes says this, treatment is the process and science of systematically and consciously using our thought to create our lives. To systematically and consciously use our thought to create our lives. That's what a prayer is. So how often do you pray? Until we can consciously and systematically change our thought to a new thought, to demonstrate, to change the conditions of our lives, to take control of our lives back. So as I was doing my talk the other day, as I was preparing my talk, I understand, I talk about this all the time, the oneness of God, getting into the oneness, directing the power of God that is right here, right now. And when Jesus says, pray unceasingly, it means every breath, every thought is a prayer, because it's always a thought. And every thought we're feeding into the mind of God, which becomes the sum total of our subjective mind. And the subjective mind creates our experience. So our experience is being mirrored to us by the subjective nature of our mind. Everything we've ever thought, our family's ever thought, the world has ever thought. And I looked 4 pages beyond the other quote that I used, and I came up with this quote. Let us blind ourselves to negation as far as we are mentally able to. Let us not talk, think, read about anything destructive, whether it be war, pestilence, famine, poverty, sickness, or limitation of any kind. And in the book, he capitalized those letters, meaning to him that was the most valid point, and there's only a few pages in the book where it's capitalized. So let's take this into mind. Why is this so important? If I'm in the place that God is all there is, and I am that power, and I'm using my mind to create, and it's my subjective nature that is feeding the creative mind of God, if I am feeding this into my mind, what is going to be my experience? It's going to be that. I'm not saying this is easy, but if you're focusing on politics and it's negative to you, you're feeding the subconscious mind. If you're focusing on the news and crime and you're really getting into it, you're feeding your subconscious mind. There are very few spiritual avatars that we can even name that have gotten into the oneness, that have created a life that is what we're seeking to. And they would tell you, do this. So when society is out there, when the news media is out there, when your friends are out there, and your family is out there, and they're telling you to think about this, no, you have to talk about this, you have a choice. You have the choice that you can change your mind. You can change what you think about. You can change the experience of your life because you are free to choose and to create. And you do not have to be bound by the past. Is that not powerful? But let me say this, you've got to be brave because everyone around you is going to be talking in a different way. And you've got to be brave to stand up for what you believe because I'm choosing to take control of my life. I'm choosing to create a life so full of joy. I'm choosing to experience peace in every moment. I'm choosing to love God. When we talk about war, is war about inclusivity? Is war about oneness? Is politics about oneness? Is disease about oneness? We can go through all of these things. None of them reflect oneness. If it's not oneness, then it's not truth. Remember, we came back. We started with truth, we're coming back to truth. The truth is that God, infinite intelligence, source, is infinite, meaning there is nothing but it. So everything is God in expression. So when we're talking, anytime we go into judgment, anytime we go into comparison, we are separating. We are creating diversity. We are going and building a wall between ourselves and the idea of our truth, and our truth is that we are one. And when we come out of oneness, we are not able to consciously use our power. That is the same power that Jesus used to heal the sick, to raise the dead, to multiply the loaves, to do all of those things. See, he came from oneness. That's why it was so easy. He didn't have to go through a spiritual mind treatment and do all the steps because he knew his oneness, he knew his power. He commanded the law. Because here's the thing about the law, that aspect of God that creates, it never judges. It does not care what you create. Because in the allness of God, anything that happens here on earth is nothing. It's not good, it's not bad, it just happens. It's the human mind that creates this idea that there's wrong and right. Because it's the idea of duality that keeps us separate from God. If you believe in right and wrong, you've now said society is split. There are people who are right and wrong, and you cannot have oneness. That does not mean you condone the actions of others. But you do not have to judge those people as being not God in expression. They are God that has made a choice that is not fitting in with what we believe society should be put into. You see, we believe that death is one of the most hideous things that we can do, to kill someone. How do you kill someone that's eternal? If you're the individualization of God, then the essence of who you are lives forever. That's another talk. That's a very deep talk to get into that aspect. But if you just play with the idea, you're the individualization and essence of God, it means that you're that wave on that ocean that is expressing itself sometimes as a little ripple, sometimes you're allowing people to body surf, sometimes you're allowing people to get on a surfboard, and sometimes you're a big old tsunami. But no matter what type of wave you're expressing, the fullness of the ocean is always connected to you. The allness, the infinite nature of God is always who you are. And when your wave collapses, you're just God. And then you come back and you express, and you're God. You see, you never stop being God, and neither does anyone around you. So I invite you today that as you look at people, and they may be doing things differently than what you may want them to do or think they should do, think about this aspect. There's God expressing there. They just may not be aware. So we've come back to the A word, the awareness word, because that's all we're ever seeking to do, is to become aware of our truth. You are not a redhead. You are not a brunette. That's just an experience. You are not gray. You are not salt and pepper. You are not dyed hair. You are not a man. You are not a woman. That's just an expression. The fact is, when you look at someone, you can see that they are the infinite wholeness and perfection of love expressing. And they're doing the best that they can in this moment. And in this moment, they're doing the best that they can based on the awareness that they've come to understand. And see, in understanding that they're doing the best that they can in awareness, you're not denying that they're the fullness and allness of God in there, and that they can take control of their lives in a moment. And if you can look at someone and you can see that they have the power to take control of their lives, you are empowering them. You are seeing them differently than they've probably ever seen before. That's the truth about the gentleman who went into Oahu, into a criminally insane asylum where there was no hope to deal with these prisoners there. They were determined that they could never come out. And what he did is he saw them differently than what their chart saw. He saw them as fully functioning, whole expressions, and he treated them as such, and within 2 years, every one of those individuals was no longer in that place. They had to close it down. There was no one left to treat. All he did was shift how he saw them. That power is the same power that Jesus used. He had an awareness that there was a God presence, and he called it. So if your partner, your children, your mother, your father, your friend, your neighbor does something, just realize that's where their awareness is. But inside of them is the Christ, is the Buddha, is the perfection of God. Once we understand the idea that we are one with God, and that we create our lives, we will now stop blaming others, and we will take responsibility for our lives, and it'll feel good, because we will have recognized the power that we are. Remember, every thought, every word, every action that you do is all powerful in your life.